love has to be there. It's a foundation, but it's not going to sustain. It's not enough. It really isn't. And I want it to be. I want it to be the movies. I want it to be all that stuff. But it really isn't enough to keep the gas in the tank or the marathon going when those times when you're just like, because there are times running, I've never run a marathon, please. That's not my thing. But the only marathon I've run is my 22-year marriage. But
Welcome back to Before You Do with Verlin. I'm your favorite premarital coach and the auntie you didn't know you needed. And today we have Mrs. Kyle Colavitti in the studio, and we will be discussing marriage being a marathon and what you need to know before you get into the race. Welcome, Kyle, and thank you for being here.
well, thank you for having me, Berlin. It's such my pleasure to be here with you this morning. It's awesome. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let's get into the first question that you think women should ask themselves, and that is, do you want to have this man's baby and why that is important?
Okay, so yeah, their first question, and I worded it that way for myself when I was in the hunt or looking for someone to be with. And do I want to have this man's baby to really get that physical image of his DNA is going to be growing in my body with my DNA to create another human? And that it's not just like, oh, we're having a baby. Like, that's a big deal in my world. And so I really was like, I want to word it that way because there's so much that goes into parenting, as you know, my gosh, that you can't even see coming. Like, you have no idea what that's like until you're doing it. So you really want to make sure. Yes, we have the romance and the excitement of creating that baby. Absolutely. Have a good time with that. But what the reality is afterward of raising a child together. And then something else that we went through, my husband and I, that we had no idea was coming is fertility issues. You think it's going to be one and done, and here we go. And that was not the case in our world. And so that leads you down a whole path of a journey together that you really have to support one another and work together through, because if you don't have each other's back during that, it's not an easy journey to go through. So you really want to work as a team for that. And we were lucky that we didn't have to go all the way to in vitro and all that kind of stuff, but there were all these hoops to jump through. I had to have surgeries and tests, and he did tests and all these things that we tried to keep our sense of humor during, but it's not easy to do that. And one of the things that's a crack up, so they give you this ovulation kit, this really high tech one the doctor gave that you do. And then after that test positive, you have 2 days, you have 48 hours to have as much sex as you absolutely can in those 48 hours. And it's not true. The myth, we learned it was a myth that the man swimmers, they don't die out. He can keep going and going, and those babies are going to keep swimming. So we're like, okay, so you have these 48 hours to, make this happen. And in the first couple of tries, first month, it's like, oh, exciting. And you make it fun and this. And then you have the second month and it didn't work. And the third month and it didn't work. And by the time you're hitting the fourth month, it's becoming difficult and a chore. And what if we're fighting? And what if we're not getting along that day, but it's supposed to be special because we're trying to have a baby? And there's a lot of pressure that you put on yourself, or I did during it, that you could run into all that stuff that you don't know. And so you want to make sure that you two are really excited about doing this as a team and together. Or when you run into all that stuff, you're going to find there's not going to be a lot of success, and it won't be joyful for you if you kind of don't think on those lines about that. And if I say to people, if you already know, well, we don't want to have kids, but you can still learn from this question or from what I'm sharing with my experience of just facing those challenges and how you do them together with a sense of humor, and how we kind of work as a team to get through something challenging.
And that's a lot to consider. And you're right. We don't go in thinking about these things. You just say, okay, yeah, we're going to have children, or no, we're not. And for me, this is a whole podcast, like this one question, because
Right.
it is so much that this entails. You got to think of, do you agree on your discipline methods?
Yes.
Do you agree in terms of, okay, this is a man I like, he makes me happy, we're good together, all of these things that are me focus, or we. But is this a man who I want to have children with because his character is going to influence the children we have? Like, is he not that bright? Like, your children might not be that bright, you know?
What
Is he
genes are you
really
mixing with?
right? What genes, does he have patience?
Yeah. Yeah,
It is so much that this entails. I know I didn't think about it. Is this the man that you want your son to emulate? Is this
Berlin,
the
yes,
man that you want your daughter to look at and say, "I'm gonna marry a man just like my dad"? All of That's why I said this could be a whole podcast because we only
absolutely.
think me, me, me. We don't think about how this will impact the children that you
No.
have. Is he impatient? Is he gonna be yelling all the time,
Mhm.
or is he patient? Will he be loving and kind? And those discipline methods, oh my gosh, that can be a real deal breaker. So, how about speaking to that, to
Yeah.
those
Oh,
things?
my gosh, it absolutely could. There's so much involved in parenting and how your lives completely change overnight. I mean, the minute that little person comes out, it's a whole new world that you've never looked at and seen before. And I mean, you bring up so many amazing things. You're right. We could talk all day just about this in terms of the role model for daughters and for sons that we're being or that this man would be for them. Yeah, parenting styles. Have you even talked about it? Have you how you grew up? What do you not wanna do like your parents? What do you do wanna do like your parents? And how do we create our own thing and not just slip into that default of what we learned growing up? How do we have that awareness of going, "Hey, yeah, I didn't like when my parents did that how that made me feel," and those kind of things. I remember years ago on an Oprah, and I was cracking up, it was a couple that they were married and their parenting styles were so different, they wound up getting divorced, and then once the kids were grown and out of the house, they got back together and got remarried. And I cracked up, and I sometimes when my husband and I are just agree on a parenting thing, I'm like, "Uh-oh, I think we're headed for that Oprah story." Like, we were fine till the kids came in. Like, it was just all the things it brings up from your childhood, from you that you need to work through. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's kinda crazy. Something I do say too is also watch your man around little kids. I mean, I have a bunch of nieces and nephews, which is lucky for me that I saw him instantly with children. He was always around those little kids, and he was amazing with those kids. I mean, right down talking to them, gets on their level, doesn't talk down to them, was one of them, which has always been how I am with children, so it really spoke to me. I had a father who was fantastic with children, amazing. I mean, just the greatest dad. Every kid was drawn. He's like the Pied Piper. Everybody was following my dad, and that's my husband, all little kids, because he dives right in and talks with them and likes to play with them and have fun with them. And I thought, okay, he's going to be a good dad. He really is. And not that we're perfect. Oh, please. How much have we all messed up? And, I said when we got money when our son was born as gifts, I said, we're putting it right into the therapy fund for him for whatever. We know we're gonna mess up somehow. I hope it's not so bad, but we put that right in there because nobody's doing it perfect and right. But yeah, so I paid attention. That's the thing. Are you paying attention? How this man is with children just everywhere, even just with waiters at a restaurant, are they kind? Are they considerate of others? This is definitely going to say a lot about how they're going to be with kids.
Absolutely. And I know I've seen it in my family and my generation how the women typically, at least the first time, chose men that were quite similar to their fathers. And that could have been whether it was good, bad, or indifferent. You
Hmm.
could see the similarities. And that's why I say that is such an important thing because you want to marry a man that your daughter can look at and say, yes, if you can't meet these standards that my father showed me, then, it's a no go. And that's important because we all, if we're going to have children, we want them to be happy. And like you said, we all can pull from our experiences and say, we don't want to do it this way, we want to do it that way, and make it our own. But you have to marry somebody that has something positive to pull from.
So
And
true.
yeah, and I tell my sons the same thing. Whoever this woman is that you're gonna marry, she's gonna raise your children. Do you want your daughter to act like this woman? Is she
Right.
high maintenance? You have to do this for me. You have to do that for me. And like these are really important things. You can't marry what I'm telling my sons, you can't marry off of looks alone and how
No.
she makes you feel. You have to think about the character of who she is because your daughter might act just like her.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, that's fantastic advice, Roland, that you're giving them and how we can be that example. And I say to people who Maybe you didn't have a father who had good
Mhm.
qualities and you don't want anything like your father. So I want you to either, if try to find the good things about your dad. If you can't, then you make a list of the qualities you do want and let's have that positive goal as opposed to the negative goal. Oh, I don't want this. I don't want that. We're not really going to say that. We're going to look at the good qualities and things that we do want because then we hopefully are attracting that to us and we're on the lookout for that because what we're thinking of is what we're going to see. So we wanna do that, and therefore, we're seeing the good qualities and then bringing those into our marriage that therefore are examples for our children of how they wanna live their life and who they end up with, yeah, for sure.
Absolutely. And not to belabor the point, but I tell my children all the time, the good that you see that your father and I do, look for that, emulate that. Anything that
Yeah.
doesn't, just scratch it because I know that we're not perfect. And I tell them all the time, we are all flawed. It's no way
Mhm.
around it. But as you said, you can pull from the positive, learn from the positive. Well, you can learn from the negative as well. But I agree, you want to focus on the positive because whatever you water, that's what will grow. And so you want the
Right, and
positive to grow.
yeah, and absolutely, we learned volumes from the negative. That's where we're learning, like, uh-oh, wait a minute, and kind of warning signs and red flags that we're looking for. But yeah, definitely, I think the more we water the good and think of the good and kind of draw that to us and try to see the positive, because yeah, not all of us were blessed with a parent, mother or father, who was ideal or acting a way that you want in your life. Unfortunately, there's a lot out there that's not okay. So we wanna make sure that you're not it's not like it's ruined for you, you know? "Oh, forget it,
Right.
I didn't have good parents." It's like, no, you can do that. And you're absolutely right. I mean, I work really hard to say to my kids, like, "I've never been the parent of a 15-year-old in my life. This is the first time I'm doing it, so I'm gonna mess up, and the key is in the repair." And that's I think that's every relationship. The key is how do we repair it? Because inevitably, we're going to have ruptures and issues and problems, but what are we doing to repair it? And that's the key too, is that's something to look at with your partner. How are they repairing when we have an issue or something that comes up? Because that's how it's gonna be with the kids.
Well, I like what you said, you're putting aside money for the therapy fund. I wish I had thought about that 18, 19 years ago, but that's a great idea.
And, I wrote that in thank you notes to people I thought would get it because some people get alarmed, like, "What are you saying? Like, it's so horrible." And I'm like, "Oh, gee," I'm joking, but I'm not. Like, there's nothing wrong with going, "Hey, you need some help? Go get it," you know? So, yeah, that's so funny.
Okay, we're gonna move on to your next point,
Yes.
that youth fades, okay? But you have to ask yourself, will you or will we still want each other when we get old?
Yes, absolutely, that we get the gift of getting old together, right? It doesn't always happen for people, but that's our plan, right? Is to grow old together and think about all the things, right? I mean, even just we're talking about having babies. I mean, I had an 11-pound baby, so that's yeah, he was huge. And that think about the stretch marks involved in that. So even not even getting that old, it was like, "Oh, wow, look at this stomach. This doesn't look like it used to." Not that I ever had a six-pack or anything, but it's kind of like, "Oh, my, this is attractive." So we've got that stuff going on, but as we get older, I mean, I laugh. I remember, Maya Angelou saying she's like, "My breasts are in a race to see which one will reach my waist first." I just start cracking up, like, right? Unless they're fake, these girls are going. They're going down. Like everything's sagging. We're all going down. There's only one way it's all going. So, yeah, we're not always gonna be this hot little thing that you were when you started dating or wearing your cute little outfits and going out on dates and things like that, like becoming a mom, right? My dry cleaner rused the day that I became a mom because I don't wear those clothes anymore being a mom. I'm wearing wash and wear all the time. These are things that you're gonna go through. It's how are is the are bald, right? That's men's issue, right? We get so many, they just get the balding. Why do they only get that? But anyway, am I gonna love him when he has no hair? When my hair's thinning, whatever, am I still gonna think that look at this person and think, "Oh my goodness, I'm just think you're the greatest thing in the world," because that's what you need to be thinking, and still wanna be there for them and help them and take care of them or whatever when we can't hear anymore. What about, mobility issues? That can happen to any of us at any given time. I know a couple, they're amazing that when they were dating, I believe, I'm not sure exactly what happened. He got in an accident and was in a wheelchair, is paraplegic. And he said, "If you're done, you're done." And she said, "Nope, I'm in this for the long haul." And they are married to this day. And that's amazing to me. Wow. What a challenge that you don't know is coming. Anything could be coming your way. And am I in this? Like, yep, you're my person. I got you, you know? That's really and that, again, you don't want to think about these things in the beginning. You're all happy and that which you should be. But let's as we're thinking of laying down a foundation of this relationship, let's make sure it's strong that when those things come up or the building gets a little wobbly with these physical issues, are we going to be there and be able to get through them and still want to be the person for that person?
I'll tell you, to speak to your point about pregnancy, my 4th pregnancy, I had twins, and so
Wow.
you wanna talk about stretch marks and oh my gosh.
The body. Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
the
2
changes.
babies, yep, and I
Ooh,
still have not recovered from that.
I
So,
bet.
I mean, my goodness, I can't even explain, but yeah, you make a lot of valid points. My son put together this project and he took pictures out of our wedding album to put together a collage for our anniversary. And so I was putting the pictures back because, I had to put them back in order like they were. And I look back, I was like, oh my gosh, we sure changed from 20 years ago. I was looking at my face, it was slim, and
Right?
my husband, and I was like, wow, look how different we look.
Yeah.
And so that's the thing. I don't think I was thinking about it just everyday life because you're just moving and you're parenting and you're working and you're building. And this was like last week. And so when I look back at these pictures, I was like, good gracious, look how good I looked. I was like, I was fine 20 years ago. What happened? 20 years and three more babies later, I was like, wow. And I showed him
Yeah.
the pictures. I was like, look at you.
Right. You're like, it's not just me.
Look at us, like, wow, but, it's like, you're right, you have to consider, and I'm thankful that we are primarily my husband is in excellent health,
Hmm.
and for all of this time, I have been just recently, and I told you about this, I had a health challenge.
Hmm.
I have never been in the hospital, and I still wasn't in the hospital, like, overnight. But the only time I've had to go to a hospital is to have children. That's it. I don't take any medication. I don't have high blood pressure, anything like that. And all of a sudden, this issue hit me like overnight. And my husband had to take me to the doctor. So, to make a long story short, I was literally down for about a good 2 weeks. And one
Wow.
week of that, I was literally in the bed nonstop. Like, whenever I was eating, he was just bringing me food and the lesson I learned was what you're saying, okay? And I mean, it wasn't like I was in the hospital for months and months. I was down just enough that I had to be in the bed and then my husband had to pretty much take over. Now we have teenagers, so it's not like they're little babies, which is a good
Hmm.
thing, but my husband stepped up. My husband
Hmm.
showed me love
Right.
during this time when I'm the one who usually does everything around the house, while he's working. Well, he had to do both and he held it down. As
Hmm.
long as I was in the bed, he made sure I rested. He made sure I had water when I wanted. He made sure I took the medicine. Like he was there. And you don't know when you may be in a position where you only have 5% to give and the
Right.
other person has to still give 100,
Mhm,
right?
mhm.
Maybe you have 1% to give. You have to be with that person who will still give 100%, even if you can only give 2%.
So true. Oh my gosh. I mean, look, you and I, we're gonna be talking for 3 days. We could go on this forever and ever because it's so true. And when my husband and I were first dating, we went to dinner with friends of my parents who were just married for 50 years. And I said, "We're newly dating. What advice would you give to people who are dating or being married for 50 years?" And she said something that I think is important, but not really why I'm bringing it up, is she said, "Always have your own thing as a woman." I always had my own thing. I have my own friends. I said, "Oh, that's good. You don't want to lose yourself in somebody else." Totally, we already do that. We got that. But he said, Traditionally, people will say, "Give 50-50. Each of you give 50." He said, "But no, I'm saying give 100%. You give 100, she gives 100. If everybody's always giving, you're gonna be good." And I thought, "Oh, I never heard that before." But then interestingly enough, like you're saying, we all give the 100, but sometimes we're not capable of it. That's what I heard a great Brene Brown when she said, sometimes it's 70-30, depending on what stage of life you're in or where you're at. If you're sick, if you just had a baby, if the kids are little, when the kids are older, who's working more, who's working less, what your career is calling for at that time. And to be okay with when am I carrying a heavier load? And that they'll be okay, not, "Hey, this isn't fair," or complaining about it, but going, "This is the deal. This is what I signed up for." 'Cause sometimes it's not gonna be equal or even 100 and 100. It's gonna be what we can do at that moment. Because also when we get into this, we're also talking about, what about our mental health? What about that? That's such a huge thing that you aren't gonna see that coming. But at that point, if someone is just like, "Hey, I can't get out of bed out of depression or postpartum depression or anything going on with you mental health wise," somebody's going to have to pick up that slack, like your husband did there, and say, "Hey, I got this. I got you. And how can I support you? How can I help you in getting better?" That's what this is all about too, is, been had so, like nowadays we're finding a lot of friends and people, my husband had like a mystery illness. Oh, we don't know what's wrong with you. You just feel terrible. Like, okay, well, thanks. So then you're on this journey, right? We're going to acupuncture, we're going to Chinese medicine, we're going to this doctor, we're going trying all different things to find what's going to heal or help make it better. And that's something you can't see that coming either. But am I prepared to be that person? And is this person prepared to be that person for me?
Exactly.
And to go back to what we were saying about the photos, I know you don't think it. You don't think you're very different at all. Then you see that picture and you're like, my goodness, wow, I look very different now. And so do you, by the way, but that's okay. We're aging together, hopefully. My mother used to say, I wish I had their picture. They were married in 1951 and their photos just classic, black and white and everything. And she said, yeah, when we would laugh at the photo and go, one day we're gonna look back on this and say, remember when dad had hair? That was when dad had hair. That's when mom was skinny. She goes, and we thought we were joking. They were not. We look, yeah, that was when dad had hair and mom was thinner. So we're cracking up, going, oh my gosh. So yeah, so much involved in that, in the looks question, definitely.
Kyle, tell us a little bit about yourself and what it is that you do.
So I am a speaker. I think back in the day they would have called it a motivational speaker, but now we call it a keynote speaker or a something. I'm like, all right, I'm just going with the times. But so I started out my career as an actress and a writer. And from doing all that, which I love doing, I really realized that I just love telling stories. I'm a storyteller, whichever form that is, through acting, through writing, directing. And now I kind of just brought that into speaking, and kind of telling my own stories and my own experiences, because I really just think that's how we learn the best, is from hearing people's what they've been through, and we relate to each other, and then we don't feel so alone. Because how often are we sitting somewhere thinking, I am the only person going through this? I feel alone. I don't know what to do. And if we listen, we hear, like, oh, wait a minute. Lots of people are just facing the same challenge, and everybody has their struggles and their wounds. So that's what I like to talk about. And I like to talk, just get in there. Like, let's get in and talk about the real stuff. Like, you're having a horrible day. Sit by me at the party and tell me all about your problems. I don't really care about laughing and joking, which is fine. But I would rather, like, let's talk about it. How can I help you? What can we do? So that's really what I like to do. And this particular, I do a bunch of different talks because I'm that person. But this is a talk I created called Marriage is a Marathon, and the 5 questions that I came up with, well, the first 3 questions I came up with when I was single and really wanting to find my true companion, as the Mark Cohn song says. I really wanted that person to share my life with. That really meant so much to me. I always knew I wanted that. And then after I met my husband and we started dating, the last 2 questions through our experience of dating came up, and I said, "Oh, I got to add these to my questions." And I tell everybody the answer to these questions has to be hell yes or no. Those are your questions. There's no, maybe, no. It's either one or the other, and you're either all in or you need to reevaluate kind of while you're there. And I don't want people to think, I follow Dr. Becky Kennedy, who is a parenting expert, who I highly recommend, but her book Good Inside is about parenting, but it's really about humans. It really works for every relationship. And what she teaches is that 2 things can be true at the same time. that we're saying to somebody, I know you're a good kid. However, you're not allowed to hit your sister. And I know you're a good person. However, this other thing is true that's not working. And so, what I like to do that with this is I think the two things can be true at the same time. We should have that fun and that joy and that romance and all that that entails in a love relationship that we're hoping for. But we also can have the reality of it. Those two things can coexist at the same time. And that's why these questions, I think, were so important to me because I wanted all that stuff, and thankfully I got all that stuff in the beginning, the fun, the romance, all the things that you're doing that I think you must have that, always have that beginning. It's like nothing else on earth. But then what does that evolve into? And then when you're thinking of being with someone forever for the rest of your life, you have to get to the reality of that and still have the romance. We still got to go on dates. We still have to do all the fun stuff. It's not just this work, work, work thing. It has to have that good balance, I think, of both. I mean, I was raised on Disney movies and I can't help it. I still love them, but it's not life. That's not really. So definitely get swept away to the castle, but then let's talk about how that castle's how are we gonna live in that castle? How's that castle gonna work? Who's taking over what? And what's it gonna look like if we're doing this forever? So that's kind of where I'm at in all of this and talking about all this.
Good stuff. I know coming up that these types of resources were not available. And so I didn't ask myself anything. I don't think when I got married, it was just like, well, you
Yeah.
love and you fall in love and all that stuff. Now I look back and the reason I started this podcast was to say, ladies, we have to do better. We have to come to the table with more than I'm in love. He makes me feel good and all logic goes out of the window because then you hear and this is what I was doing. I was hearing these conversations. How come I didn't know this before I got married? I wish I
Right.
had known this. Why didn't somebody tell me? And I'm
Yeah.
like, you know what? I can start a podcast addressing some of these issues. And so I literally sat down and I wrote out well, maybe like 97 topics of
Love
things
it.
I wish I knew before I said I do, right? And
Right.
things that I didn't consider. It wasn't until after you get married and then they come up.
Yeah.
So, marriage, like you said, it's a marathon, it's on the job training.
Hmm.
However, I do think we should have deal breakers, prerequisites. Like we should have something logical, the same way you sit down at a job, the same way you
Hmm.
apply for colleges, like all the things that you do that are important in life. We should incorporate some of these ideas into marriage instead of just going into it. I'm in love and let's do this. It's like we have to do better. And so I understand what you're saying about asking these questions before, which is exactly, and you came up with questions after. You're going to always be learning. It's
Absolutely. That's the thing. No matter how much we have to learn, that we're in it together to grow and learn together. Because hopefully, as just human beings in and of ourselves, we're growing and learning and evolving. You're not going to stay that same person, hopefully, that you were when you got married at 25 or 22 or whatever's going on. But you're totally right. I'm so grateful you are doing this, and you're such a service to people in letting them know, like, hey, love has to be there. It's a foundation, but it's not going to sustain. It's not enough. It really isn't. And I want it to be. I want it to be the movies. I want it to be all that stuff. But it really isn't enough to keep the gas in the tank or the marathon going when those times when you're just like, because there are times running, I've never run a marathon, please. That's not my thing. But the only marathon I've run is my 22-year marriage, but I have lots of friends who are triathletes and all this, so I've seen all that goes into their prep, which is what kinda made me go, "Oh, this is like what it is." And I know there are times during that marathon that they think, "Why did I ever start this?" And they think, "I wanna quit." And they don't. So what keeps you going? What are the things that how you kinda keep going, and I think if you set it up with learning more beforehand, with having a stronger foundation than just the, "Oh, we love each other, and he's so cute, and I'm this, and I'm that." Yeah, forget it. I had a friend years ago because I was old. I got married at 33, so I was older. I didn't find the right person until I was older, and she got married young, and I saw her, said, "Oh my gosh, it's so exciting you got married." I hadn't seen her around. First thing she said to me was, "Oh, wait till you see him. He's so cute." And I just looked at her and thought, "Really? That's the first thing you wanna tell me about your husband? They're divorced." Like, though I think it's important that you have that attraction and that you're sexually attracted to your partner and all that needs to be there, it's never gonna sustain, like, it's not gonna work. So you really have to have these other things in place if you wanna be successful. And the idea of the marriage as a marathon came about, it wasn't even mine. Some family members who were younger had gotten married quickly. Of course, now we hear the news they're getting divorced, and my cousin and her husband were over, who I'm pretty close with, and we're all talking about it, like, "Wow, look at I know, and we're of a different generation, but is that why? And why we're still together, I don't know." And my cousin's talking, and her husband, who's a man of not many words, just kind of blurted out, "It's a marathon, not a sprint. Marriage is a marathon." And I just looked at him, and I was like, "You are so right. That is so true." And that just kinda led me on that journey to go, yeah, I'm thinking like of all my friends and all the things they need to prepare and what they use and the gear they need and things, the time it takes to be successful to go through this marathon. I mean, you can show up the day of it with no training and no gear and hope it goes well. And I think that's what a lot of people are doing. Like, no, whatever. And they're not taking, or they're just not taking it as seriously as I did. I was like, I really want to find someone to share my life with, to know them and be known and, go the long haul. So I really wanna make sure I'm making a good choice in that situation, and that he is too. I want him to be happy.
One thing I tell people, especially ladies, when we're talking about marriage is, in my opinion, my humble opinion, marriage or relationships is 10% love, 30% commitment, and 60% effort.
I love that, Verlin. I
There's a
agree. It really is, and I've heard people say, like, well, it's not hard, and then I'm like, "No, it actually is hard." I don't know what God bless you in whatever marriage you're living in that it's not hard work, but it's a lot of work, but it's a labor of love. I want it, I'm choosing it. I'm not just going, "Oh, I gotta do this." No, I chose this, I choose to do the work, and I think about anything worthwhile happen overnight. It's not easy. I don't know that life is meant to be easy. It's not, we're not learning if it's too easy, and I just think it's part of it, and once we get over those humps or that hard time, there is a cruising, there is a time of like, "Oh, okay," and then we might run into something else that we go, "Oh, okay, this is coming up," and then how we navigate that and work on it together and do the repair when it isn't going so well is key.
Okay, so we probably jumped ahead a little bit. I know I did. Now that I see this.
And that's okay. It kind of was, and I thought, "Oh, this is a good segue to the next
Yeah.
question," but then we were talking about me, so enough about me. Let's
Okay.
segue.
All right. So you say women or ladies or people should ask themselves, will we be there for each other when the other is sick or dying? And I know we kind of talked about the sick thing. That's why I said I
Mhm.
jumped ahead,
Yeah, no,
but
but that was
that's
perfect. I'm
important.
like, that's totally important, 100%. I loved you telling that story because not even just picking up the load of the house, 'cause I'm with you too. We as women usually, not always, are carrying all the things that have to be done and multitasking and all the million things in the house that my husband doesn't usually have to do. Is he gonna pick up that slack? But really, it also comes down to, am I gonna care for this person, and are they gonna care for me in really intense, serious ways that can come down the line. I mean, and it's not easy to be bringing you food and are you okay and bringing you medicine and taking care of you. But what if one of us gets cancer? One of us is going through chemotherapy, which I've seen how hard that is on a body and how you have to support someone through that. I've seen the diapers, are you wiping the butt? Are you down for that? Because yeah, that's a lot to ask of some people. And is it something you're willing to do? And is this person willing to do that for you if you get there? I mean, all these different things that it can come up. I mean, with you don't see coming, right? How can I know of what it's going to be? We do our best to take care of ourselves and things like that. I have the story that really, in the long run, as hard as it was, just showed me that how loved I was by my husband. It was really amazing that I had a little skin cancer that had to be removed on my head, and I'd never had this before, and they're like, "Come on in on a Friday, we'll do this." Okay, sure, I'm not thinking it's that big of a deal. Well, I go in and it's a full-on, like, surgery. They're laying me down, putting the drape over it. I'm like, "Oh, this is a bigger deal." It's kind of freaking me out. So I have this big bandage on my head the whole weekend walking around. I go on. and I can't get it wet. So my husband very sweetly washed my hair in the sink. I go, I need to wash my hair, will you? You know, he did that. And I had to take a bath and all this stuff. Well, come Monday, I start noticing like, what's going on? My face is swelling. Like it's very strange. And I was at work and I was like, do I look weird? They're like, no, it's fine. Well, by that night, it was puffing the whole face. I'm calling the doctor saying something's not right. There's swelling. Well, the wound's going to be no, no, no. You understand? Like, and they weren't really listening. We'll call you back. Never did. By healthcare in America. Tuesday morning, I woke up and my entire face, like the eyes are so shut. I mean, just horrible. And my hair is this dirty hair now from being washed 2 days ago. And my son looks at me and he says, "You look like a blobfish." I start cracking up, and I don't know what that is. And I looked it up. I said, "You're right. I do look like a blobfish. That's hilarious." So I look terrible. I finally was like, I'm just going to the ER. Well, the doctor called me. They don't know why this is happening. They have no idea what's going on. They go, "Let's open the wound." So they take some stitches out. Well, maybe that it's too tight and we're going to give you steroids and all these nightmare things. Well, what happens, as I fear, the wound gets infected. Great. I go back. I met this doctor over and over. What is happening? He says, "So what you need to do now, it's open and it's infected, so we can't close it. You're going to take this gauze strip of antibiotic and you're going to shove it in that hole in your forehead." What? And he's like, "If you have a nurse to do it." I'm like, "Oh yeah, there's one living in my basement." "What are you talking about? I have a nurse." And I'm just like, I can't believe this is happening to me. Take these antibiotics, take this, take that." Well, they did it for me, and I'm like, "I don't know if I can do this." So here I am trying to shove an antibiotic strip into my face, and I can't do it. I'm like, "I can't do this. I can't do this. I don't know what I'm doing." And my husband says, "I'll do it." And I just looked at him like, "I'm sorry, what?" And he said, "No, I got it. Come here, you know." And I sat, and this man proceeded to very gently and lovingly and kindly stick a antibiotic gauze strip into my face. And I was like, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe you are doing this. Thank you so much." And he proceeded to do this every morning and every night for the next week to heal this thing. And I mean, I said to him, I said, "Truly, I don't know that I've ever felt so loved in my life. Like that, I am in awe of you. I believe I could do this for you." I'm like, "I totally would do this for you 100%, but I'm really moved by the fact that you would do this for me and not cringe and still like me later, be attracted to me later, because that's kind of weird. You're dealing with this wound." And it got worse from there. I had a reaction to the antibiotics. I had to have more. I mean, this was a total nightmare thing that we went through together that was just not pleasant. So who knew, right? That that was going to come up and that this was something he would be called to do, and he stepped right up and did that for me. And I truly believe, I'm like, "I'm all in. Throw me in, coach. I could do that for you." And I'm ready for the diapers or whatever might come our.
That's beautiful. And when you go through things like that, it really does create a sense of gratitude. Like you
Mhm.
said, when you can look at this person and say, "Wow, you did that for me. Thank you." And to understand that they were there when you needed them the most, and that's where that effort comes in. When you think about it, depending on how long, it doesn't matter if you've been married 5 years, 10 years, 15, 20, 25. Most of the time, we don't sit and think about the possibility or the changes. We're looking at this person now, and they're fit and they're healthy, for the most part.
Right.
And you're saying, wow, he looks so good. She's so beautiful. And we're in good health. And you brought up the mental aspect, and you just can't begin to imagine how things can possibly change.
Mhm.
Although most people go into marriage saying, "I hope we're married for 40 or 50 years, forever." But you don't really conceptualize what 40 or 50 years may look like.
Mhm.
And so having these conversations are important because we don't think about it. We don't go into, like you said, "Will this person be with me if I'm in the process of dying?" Like most
Mhm.
people don't even want to have that conversation. If you talk about life insurance, you feel like, "I
Right?
don't wanna wow, you trying to kill me off?" "I don't wanna
Yeah.
talk about this because then I might die." But these are things when you get married in your 20s or your 30s that you do have to think about. How do you
Yeah.
even feel about that? Like, are you marrying somebody who's going to say, "I don't wanna talk about life insurance because I don't wanna die?" That is something important. My husband and
That's
I had to have that conversation. We
yeah,
didn't have it before we got married. It was like 10 years later, like, you know what? We don't have life insurance. Well, what do we
yeah,
need it for? Okay, here we go. We got to
yeah.
have the talk. Yeah. You should be talking about these things up front.
Absolutely, and you know, it's funny, when we had a florist, thankfully, that my husband knew that he met and was where he went to get me flowers, and we were dating, so he said, "Well, for our wedding." And one time when we were talking to her about our wedding, there was a woman there, I think she worked at Wells Fargo, and she was totally telling us that stuff. Get your will, get things in order. I know you don't wanna think of it. She goes, "But this is what I deal with, is the probate and the spouse who has nothing because the money's tied up because they didn't think of it." And we were like, "Oh, okay," and still didn't do it right away. We still weren't doing all that stuff because 'cause we're just like, "Yeah, it'll be fine," you're doing that. But it is really important to think about that kinda stuff, and just so many things you see, like, I have friends right now that are going through there's such a testament to this. He had a brain aneurysm that they found and said it's okay for now, but at some point it'll need surgery. Well, years went by and that came. And he recently had surgery on the brain aneurysm. Well, during that surgery, he had a stroke. Not that old, in early 50s, had a stroke during that. Had to learn to talk and use half of his body. Then after that, went home, had a seizure. Then that created cracks in his back. So now he has it just keeps going. And they are just every time he's an online guy, so he's posting videos of his journey and things like that, and she's filming them, and every time I'll comment like, "What a testament you 2 are to marriage because you didn't see any of this coming. You're both in it. There is so much that he cannot do anymore that he used to be able to do. They hope they're getting back there, but that's going to be a journey. That's a long journey. And they're have humor about it and they're making these funny videos, but they're going through it together. And I just applaud them. And then I say you're an inspiration to all of us to see what it really can take and how to have that partnership of what you don't know is coming in terms of illness, and it doesn't have to be death, it doesn't have to be cancer and, on your deathbed kind of thing, it's anything that could come up, and how are we navigating that and supporting one another through that?
Well, I'm thinking we're going to have to come back for a part two.
I know, because we love to talk, it's so great, I could do it all day.
Okay, so this is what we'll do.
Okay.
Please give our audience all the ways that they can connect with you. Even though we're going to have you back, just
Yes.
in case someone misses the part 2, how can they contact you, Kyle?
So the best way would be I have a website, which is kylecolavitti.com. And you can also email me, kylecolaviti@gmail.com, which is also on my website. So then you can see other stuff I do on my website, or if you have anything you want to talk about or questions or any way I can help, absolutely, I would love to. And if they want, I'll put on there when I'm going to be speaking anywhere, if it's in anybody's town or something. So good, come see me. I would love that too in person.
That's good stuff. Thank
Yeah.
you for being here. And I want to say thank you, a special thank you to my guests, my listeners for joining the conversation. And if you have not already, make sure you hit that subscribe button and please share this episode with at least 2 or 3 friends. And I'd appreciate it if you hit the like button as well. Stay tuned for more content as well as programs I'll be offering in the near future for women only. Because there's one thing I know, and that's how to get a good man, and I'm going to show you how to do the same. Go over to my website, verlatarleton.com, and pick up your freebies and see what's going on. Again, thank you for joining us. May you experience extraordinary love. Bye for now.